Let's go through some basics about Chat GPT. It's made by an organization called OpenAI, which is the company that created it's openai.com. So when you want to use it, you go to OpenAI. They make a number of AI tools, and Microsoft was a big investor in OpenAI, and there's some joint relationships between them. ChatGPT is called a large language model. It understands how humans put language together. And that's why it's had such a big impact, because we use language for communicating an awful lot, and having a computer program that can have a conversation with us is kind of interesting. It's called generative predictive text, which is where the GPT comes from. And from talking with some friends of mine that are really involved in programming and utilizing artificial intelligence and technology, what they tell me it does, it creates text based on what it thinks is the most likely word to use. And it actually scores words and has this algorithm, the mathematical formulas that kind of determines what it thinks it's likely to use. It learns from feedback. ChatGPT has ways for user to give it feedback. And during the pre-launch, they had a lot of people using it to give it feedback, and so that they could understand how well it worked and how, where the faults were in it. It tries to understand your request. So it's trying to understand what you are asking of it to do. And that sounds a little bit obscure, but we'll take a look at some things. And there's also a GPT version 3.5 and a GPT version 4. Version 4 is more advanced. It actually came out about 6 months after 3.5 and actually has a lot of things in it that it gives people the capability to do that 3.5 could not do. We're going to look at writing because it's a language model. And so there's all types of things you can use it for: writing emails, writing nonfiction, writing fiction, writing scripts, writing dialogue, rewriting things, writing coding, brainstorming. And a lot of it is a matter of understanding that you're dealing with something that's almost behaving like a human being as opposed to a computer program. And when we use computer programs, we're kind of used to doing things that we think the program can do. But when working with ChatGPT, it really helps to understand that it's more capable than just a typical computer program. So you can ask it things. You can ask it to solve problems. You can have a conversation with it. And that's one of the areas where they've limited it, because they found that if you have too long a conversation with ChatGPT, it tends to diverge and get, nonsensical and has some difficulty dealing with it. So they cut your conversation off at a certain point after about 25 dialogues. You can plan things like a recipe and a trip. It can do analysis, so you can upload something to it. It can translate. It can create step-by-step instructions. You can ask it a lot of things and it'll do it for you. It helps, as I mentioned, to think like you're asking a person. And the more specific you are, the better the results. It helps to think of yourself as kind of a director of a TV show or a movie. Even if you haven't been one, you might have seen images of them and they're talking action and they're talking, well, I want it more like this, or I want it less like this, or I want it shorter, I want it longer, so you're actually the director of what you're doing in ChatGPT, and you can really get good results from it that way too. So what you have to do is create an account with OpenAI, and then you have the ability to enter prompts within ChatGPT. And that's all it is. There's a free account and there is a paid account. I happen to use the paid account so that I have a few other features that are available to me because of that. But I'll try and point them out. The free account and the paid account work very similarly. And there are some limitations. You may know this, that it only has information up to September 21. They did have a beta test where you could use ChatGPT and ask it to have Bing go out and find things, which lets you go up to the current date, but they've put that on suspended program right now because they're working with it to make sure they get it working better. And ChatGPT can make mistakes on facts. You have to make sure it's not a search engine, it's not a library, it's a language model so that you have dialogues with it. So some examples of prompts, okay? You can write a story about something. You can ask what something means. You can ask for a list. You can act as a character. That's one of my favorite ones. You can ask it to write for somebody who doesn't understand something, or a 6-year-old or something like that, or write for. So prompts can be very, very varied. And we'll go through a number of prompts that I've used from simple to more complex and see what it does. We've been using AI already in a lot of tools. Google Translate uses AI. Apple Translate uses AI. Microsoft Translate. They've been using AI a lot for translation already. We're now seeing a model that's based on a language that can do a lot more things other than just translation too. Thing with ChatGPT, it has information on everything. Microsoft's a big investor. And so Microsoft has implemented OpenAI ChatGPT technology in tools like Bing, where they have Bing AI, which will go out and check for current information. And ChatGPT does have the ability for you to add plugins. Okay, so just like you can add a plugin to Microsoft Office apps or Google Maps or other tools, you can add plugins to ChatGPT, and they're using that to extend its capabilities too. I've got a ChatGPT paid account. You can see my account here. I went to OpenAI. I pay $20 a month. And so my account is listed here. If I click on the 3 dots, it gives me my plan and settings and opportunity to use some beta features, okay? So beta features are some things that are coming out that you can use. You can use plugins, you can use code interpreter. I'm not a particularly active coder. I don't write code, but people use that. You can they're introducing new features that you'd like to consider, okay? Then they have things like data controls where I can keep track of my history as well. And that's one of the nice things about it is if you look on the left-hand column here, it has a lot of things on the history of my chats so that I can go back and go and look at them and use them whenever I want to. So a simple chat might be, Carl wrote a send article about Atlantic salmon. So tell me about Atlantic salmon in Canada. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Okay. So it'll assume that spelling needs to get corrected. And so it'll write an article and it'll explain it. I didn't give it any parameters. I just said, tell me, about Atlantic salmon in Canada, right? So what your first response may be okay, and it may be, different, and why it's organizing it the way it is just making all kinds of assumptions about what it thinks most people would want to know about it, okay? So it's not really defining anything really, really well. So now I've got all kinds of characteristics of it, and they're breaking it out into paragraphs, and I can regenerate it if I like it, but I can say, make it shorter in 500 words, okay? And it'll rewrite it, okay? And it'll take all what it thinks are the most important points and bring it into a short, a description of it. So you can start to refine things if you want to. So that's one of the great capabilities of it is no matter what you have written, if you find something's too long, you can say, write it shorter. Okay, can you make this into bullet points? and you can refine it a little further than that, and get a more of a summary, just bullet points. So sure, here's the same information formatted as bullet points about Atlantic salmon. And so, you can use it for a lot of different varieties. Now, this is, using a lot of, information about things. So what if you were a teacher, of sixth grade science? Okay. Can you write it for sixth grade science students? Okay. And it'll rewrite it. Here's a simplified explanation. You can have it right for ages. You can have it right for other things. So this is all one chat that it's creating. We're just asking it to refine or define a little bit more and try and think. So if we want to say, hey, can you explain more about what the Canadian government is doing? So we want a little bit more, okay? And it understands typos. Okay, so here's a simplified explanation for a sixth grade audience of what the Canadian government is doing to help Atlantic salmon. So you can really refine the types of responses you get from it, because you're essentially talking to, an artificial person, right? So if you were working with a freelance writer and you'd say, yeah, I'd like this to be done this way, I'd like it to be done that way, I'd like to change things, I'd like to go different. Now, this is one chat, okay? So I can start a new chat at any time up here, okay? So if I have an article that I want to copy and paste, so I wanted to get a recipe, I wanted to find things about, I use it to write articles about different drafts. I try to get information about technology and other tools, but you can have it create a fictional story. So you can have it write an email asking someone to you can write an email wishing someone happy birthday, okay? Now, if you're not sure what to write, dear, it'll write the email out, subject, dear, and it comes up with some imagination, on it too, in terms of what you want to do. So it's like a real nice birthday message for people. So instead of just saying, hey, happy birthday, or, pinning a smiley face on somebody in social media, you can do, more things. And you can copy this. There's a copy function and paste. And if you like the response, you can do this and say, oh, this was give it some feedback, because they do take this feedback and help out. Now you say, I want it shorter, or I want it something different. So see, now, can you convert this to a poem? And let's see what it comes up with. Okay, so one of the issues with ChatGPT is that it wants to respond sometimes, and sometimes it responds well. Other times it has a little bit of a delay. My paid account is supposed to be kind of a priority, so it's supposed to be better. So here it is. It actually scrolled it down. So it actually converted this whole thing into a poem for me. Okay, and we can make it shorter and ask it to make it shorter if we want to. Okay, but I mean, it's going to write what you ask it to do. Okay, so now an interesting thing is another way to do it. Can you sound like Yoda? And it's going to write a birthday poem as though it's, sounds like Yoda, okay? And it's just, you can give it characteristics like Yoda, Shakespeare, other things like that that give it a tremendous capability. So if you wanted to do something else, okay, so let's say you're planning a workout. Okay, so we're going to start a new chat here. Okay, and we're going to say, what kind of, or we'll actually say plan you know how I found workout instructors and fitness experts, they're always trying to come out with workout routines for you to do. So here's a 4-day split workout that focuses on upper body strength, okay? Different reps, different things, okay? So it's going to, I don't know why it came up with 4 days. I could have asked it for a week or a 30-day plan, and it'll do that. And it'll give me that information too. So it'll give me a lot of information in terms of how to do things in different ways. So one of the things that I like to do is see how it can give me data. So I'm going to say, give me a list of the top 10 most visited national parks in the United States with the number of visitors. Okay, so here's the list. Okay, so it doesn't have up to date, but based on 2019 data. So it'll tell you what the most popular ones are and how many people they have visiting them. Okay. Okay, so we're going to stop this here for a second. Okay, can tell me the size of the national parks. Here's the sizes, okay. So, okay, it gives me a list of information. Okay, so that's nice to know. But wouldn't it be great to have this in a table, you know, rather than a list? So give me a table, these parks with a column for the park name, visitors, and size.
How are you going to sort that?
I don't know. We'll find out. It's going to go from 1 to 10. Okay. Now, if I wanted to sort it, I can copy and paste this into a spreadsheet, you know, if I want to, and I can sort it. Or I can, you know, ask it to sort it by size or by others. So it's taking the first part of the chat, which was visitors, Joe, and
Yeah.
it's saying that's what I asked it for first. But
Okay.
if I say, okay, can you sort it by size?
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. So yeah,
I just wanted to make sure that I know you can do it. I just wanted to see why did it sort the way it sorted, you know?
Yeah,
And like you say, it took the first term, so that's good.
Yeah. Now, let's say you've got an everyday, you know, you want to find something like, okay, let's start a new chat. Thanks very much. What is the fastest way to get from to Seattle? Kind of general, typically by air, flight duration, you know, driving's another option, takes about 18, 20 hours. Okay, fine. Trains and buses take longer than driving, actually. It's kind of weird. We don't have a good train system in the United States. Okay, so if I wanted to stop in San Francisco, can you tell me what kinds of flights I can get? It may or may not tell me, but you can, you know, so real-time information. So it's going to tell me about direct flights, who operates them, where to go, how I can do it, different routes I can take. And so let's get a little more specific. Okay, while I'm in San Francisco, I'd like to take in some great Italian restaurants. Give me a suggestion for Italian restaurants while in San Francisco. Here's a few highly rated ones. Okay, so it's going to, why it picks them based on Michelin's and other information. It's great from the web. And now what's happening is that Chat GPT is interesting. So if I said, gee, I've got 3 days in San Francisco, how should I plan these restaurant meals? And it'll start solving a problem. Okay, if you have 3 days, want to try, you can consider planning it as follows. Day 1, okay? So it's going to actually plan my itinerary for me. And so if you were thinking about going to visit a museum or a city or other things, you could ask it to plan things out for you as well. I mean, I know Travelocity is integrating it into their chat, but it's interesting how they're doing. Now, another thing you could say is, what if I want to see a museum near one of these restaurants? Okay. It's going to tell me what's nearby, right? Okay, so I'm going to tell me what's nearby: the Cable Car Museum, the Contemporary Jewish Museum, the Walt Disney Family Museum, what's nearby the restaurants. Yeah, Carl.
Okay, I got the $1 million question for it. I want to know, I want a diagram of virtualization. I did a great diagram, sent it to all my friends, and nobody understood it. I'm the only one who understood it. So, and all my geeks didn't understand it. Just me. I'm the only one who understood it. So I'd like Chat GPT to explain virtualization to me in a diagrammatic form. Can it do it?
Okay. Explain virtualization. It's not that good at diagramming, but it will try. It's a text-based model, but it can describe it, okay?
Okay, got it.
It's going to interpret text as opposed to diagrams or images, but they are working on that. They're actually working with a third-party app that provides services for people with vision impairments. And so they're looking at it as a way for people with vision impairments to take their smartphone and point it at something, and then OpenAI will explain it to them and tell them what it is. So they're doing that, okay? So another way to do it is to look at different add-ins. Now, some add-ins are starting to become enhanced. So I'm going to go up to my new chat, and under GPT-4, when I see this, I do have plugins. And that's where Chat GPT is doing 2 things. One is it's obviously licensed to Microsoft, and in Microsoft Bing has an AI tool that you can ask these prompts, and it'll search the web for the most current information. But they also have a plugin tool or add-on tool, just like any other applications. They got add-ons, and if you have the paid account, that's one of the things they offer you. So in the paid account, if I go over here and I hover over GPT-4 and I look at plugins, it will give me the ability to add and enable plugins. So if I go to my settings and beta, I think this is where they're located. It's changed a little bit. I can look at plugins. It's supposed to give me a list of plugins when I cover over here. So let's see if I can check on this and get it going. But usually it pops up a window for plugins. So sometimes there's a few things that aren't working correctly on it. So if I look at default, I can go there. If I go to plugins, let's see where it's got me. There we go. Okay, so now I've got a plugin store that opens up. Okay, so plugins are third-party applications that are not run by Chat GPT. So they connect Chat GPT to external apps. So Chat GPT will automatically choose when to use a plugin during a conversation, depending on the plugins you've enabled. So let's take a look at what these plugins are. Okay, A+ Doc Maker. It'll create PDF documents, okay, and format your information into other things. Have interactive chats with PDFs. You can drag and drop a PDF into it. You can ask it to get to the GitHub repository. That's where a lot of coding. Ask your PDF if you want to build diagrams. So there you have a diagramming plugin where you can ask it to do diagrams, browse web pages, and so they're expanding their plugins. They used to only have 2 pages of plugins. So let's take a look at what others. Earth generates a map image based on location, tilt, and style. Expedia. So if I wanted Expedia to say, book a trip for me, or Kayak, if I wanted to get current information, it'll give me information automatically. I have a Kayak installed, Expedia, I use them. It'll generate a CSV file that can be directly imported. It'll search and summarize the web, creates notebooks and other things, checks the availability of website domains, and compares prices. Prompt perfect. I can start a prompt with perfect. It'll automatically focus in on the prompt a little bit. So your question, Joe, about 2021 and how does it do things? It's also got there's a tool called Scholar AI, which gives it access to a scientific peer-reviewed database. Here's show me diagrams, create and edit diagrams. So let's try this. I'll install it and we'll see if it can do it. Smart slides for rapid PowerPoints, Vox script, searching of YouTube transcripts, Web Pilot, browsing PDF, whimsical, flowcharts, maps, Wikipedia. So you can get more information, okay, if you want to. Now, what's happening is that these are third parties that are enabling you to use Chat GPT to do things with their capabilities. So let's see if we can ask it to do a new diagram here. So I've got this new tool, show me diagrams. I'm going to highlight prompt perfect. I'm going to highlight Kayak. Okay, so now I say, draw a diagram. And I don't know, Carl, if it's going to do it. Virtualization. No. Okay, we'll see. It has an error generating the plugins. Okay, so for some reason it didn't like it. We'll try it again. Okay, so it doesn't seem to want to use that one. Okay, so that's not
be able to do a network, a home network.
Well, okay, so I've got these. Okay, let's there was an error generating the response. Let's try a new chat. Now, it could be that I've got to start and stop Chat GPT again, but we don't know. I haven't used that plugin, so we'll see if it does. Now, it doesn't like accessing that plugin, for example. So let's try one that lets me use Kayak. Okay, so let's say prompt, which is supposed to initiate prompt perfect, create a network diagram, and we'll see what it says. Okay, so it's having a problem with these plugins. So sometimes there's errors that happen. Okay, so I'm going to have to disable these plugins a little bit and try them out differently. So let me go to new chat and let me go to plugins, and it's the plugins usually come up like this. So let's see if I can try just using show me diagrams and see if it'll do it. And if it'll prompt it or not. Sometimes it might, sometimes it might. Okay, using show me diagrams. Okay, so it's one of the other ones. It's automatically using show me diagrams to do it. It's generating it. So it has to go out to this. So here's a simple diagram of a home network. Okay. Okay. So that's how the plugins are working with Chat GPT. Now, admittedly, I mean, there's always a little bit of an error or something like that. So this is pretty good. There's the internet, there's a router, and there's all the stuff you typically have connected to your router, right? Now, you can edit it online if you want to make any changes. I don't know what it does, or how it works that way. But, if you wanted to do something in a different way, you could do it that way. So it's like, let me find there was a teacher in one of my classes that asked me to say, write me a present level of performance for a student that's extremely low in math, which is a teacher assessment. So people are starting to think about how they can use these in everyday activities that they might be involved in. Okay, so looking at that. So we can write Valentine greeting cards, 10 greeting cards if we want to. Okay, so if you want to do, you can do greeting cards and custom messages and things like that. Or if you wanted to find out different benefits of things like a credit union, or here's a list of questions. So I said, okay, let me try this out. I had a list of technology questions. I want a collection of true or false questions about technology. Give me 10 simple ones, 10 of medium difficulty, and 10 very difficult. So it gave me a collection. I don't know why it only came back with 5 on each one when I asked it for 10, to be honest, but it had true or false. The iPhone was first released in 2007. That's true. Okay, but it didn't give me the answers. Okay, so now I said, okay, can you give me some multiple choice questions with answers? And it gave me the answers here. What does the acronym URL stand for? And it gave me 4 choices. One of the hardest parts about creating quizzes is coming up with multiple choice answers that are things that people may want to get, and understand. So then it has some medium difficulty, and then it has difficult. What cryptographic algorithm is commonly used for secure communication over the internet? Well, it's RSA, but it doesn't explain what RSA is. Okay, I didn't think the term IoT was that difficult, but some people do. And so it explains these different things. I didn't understand what a functional programming language was, so I had to do. So you can do it for creating a lot of things. So I know, Carl, you like to create puzzles. You can use it to create puzzles because it'll do things. So there's interesting problems it'll solve. It says, I have a book, candle, a pen, and a cup of coffee. How should I stack these in a pile? Right? It's going to solve a problem. Okay. It's going to explain a little bit about why it's doing it that way. Okay. So, I mean, you can ask it all kinds of problems. So if you say, well, gee, how can I reduce, how can I make the most money? Some things it won't tell you. It's going to say, okay, well, really, you want to know that? Well, it's going to explain some things in very general terms, but it's going to give you a lot of basic information. So I found that for fiction, it's really great. I'll show you a little fiction story that we can write. So if you want to write a story, a fantasy story for a child, you don't have to know anything. You can use Chat GPT to write a story. So I'm going to stop generating this and start a new chat. So let's say about Emma, a girl who meets a dragon. Okay, I didn't give it very specifics. I just said, write a fantasy story about Emma. Okay, so once upon a time, that story start like that, right? In a kingdom far, far away. And it explains, Emma is doing this now, and then I can say, well, okay, I'd like it to have I'm going to let it write the story here, but it's writing the whole story. I mean, so this is one of the reasons why the writers and actors are out on strike, because I mean, this is text and language. Okay, so I can say, translate this into another language. Okay, so I can say, translate this into Ukrainian. Okay. And we'll let it go. And it does it. Okay. So it's like, depending on what you're doing, it's like, okay, where do you start? Where do you end up with doing things? Okay, so now I could say, now add some dialogue for the characters. Why not, right? Oh, only one message at a time. Okay, so it's telling me, okay, so I'm going to stop that. I'm going to do a new chat. I'm going to say, write a script for an explanation video about virtualization. With some suggestions for visual aids. Okay, narrator, hello, welcome, right? Understanding, title slide. Another slide, diagram of a single computer, diagramming showing the process. Now, it didn't create the diagrams, but I could say, what do you mean by, what should the diagram showing the process of virtualization be? But it's going to write a script for, a slide presentation or a YouTube video or anything that people might want to do. So people that are smart are starting to use this for content creation a lot. And so, they're taking it up, and here's the usual, okay, using the Show Me Diagrams plugin. Well, we tried that, but it even suggested the plugin. Okay, so we can look at that. So the visual aids, so we'll let it create visual aids doing that. So if you wanted, this is a great way to create little scripts and dialogue for things too, if you want to. Now, one of my favorite chats is talk to me like my grandmother and tell me what I should do to find a new job. You can have some fun with this too, right? Oh, sweet. And the dialogue's great. Let's get started. Okay.
That is funny. That is Funny.
Yeah. So, and you can ask it to write jokes. You can, I mean, the thing is, don't think of yourself as talking to a computer program. Think of yourself as talking to a person. You know, the plugins are kind of nice. I mean, like I can ask it to give me flight information with Kayak, and it's done that pretty well. The diagram you saw it worked. I'm not sure which plugin's not quite working right, but sometimes, you know, you get errors in software when you're doing something live as well. Okay. Anyway, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to see a few things about, you know, different ways that you can think about using Chat GPT. I teach a lot of classes to people that are marketers, and they ask me about creating a website. And I say the mechanics of creating a website are not the difficult parts of doing things. You know, they think they are. I said the difficult part of creating a website is having to come up with what you want to put on each page of your website, coming up with that content. So, but people can do a lot of things. They can do step-by-step instructions. They can create scripts for their videos. They can, you know, we can write emails, we can write poems. So, you know, it's just a matter of your imagination. And you can see how the plugins are going to, there's one plugin that's been disabled that is actually a plugin that lets you use Chat GPT to search the web using Bing, but they've disabled it right now because it's not giving good results. And so they've cut it off from people. So they'll be putting that in place hopefully soon. But right now, Bing AI will give you more current information, and one of these plugins may connect to something you need too.